So you were a vegan for a year?
Yeah.
Talk me through that experience.
It was great. I'll be frank. I was living in a life where I was eating a ton of seed oils, processed foods, garbage, and going through a raw vegan diet. What it did is it instilled self-regulation. So what it helped me do is start having more connection with my food. Right. So understanding, why is it that I eat this? How does it make me feel? What are the pros and cons about it? Now, I wasn't able to sustain it. I think that there's a potentiality where the vegan diet is or could be a superior diet. There's plenty of studies validating it, but obviously this is one of these arguments that are eternal. But I had a great experience on it. I ended up losing a ton of weight because I didn't maintain to a super specific vegan diet. So I went back to a grass-fed meat diet, and I feel great. But it kind of helped me break out of the food matrix because it made me more conscientious as to what I was eating.
My kind of perspective on diet sometimes is, if someone goes from no diet, so let's say you're eating fucking trashy food, McDonald's, to having any structured diet, so whether it's keto, vegan, carnivore, it's going to be an improvement.
Yes.
It's not an optimization, but it's just an improvement, right? It's like
even at the mental level, right? Even at the mental level, because it allows you to start building these filtration systems for food. You start checking the ingredients. Well, what the fuck is red 40 tint? What is this Chinese chemical that they're putting in my food? Well, it's poison. Okay, well, what are processed industrialized seed oils, and what is it doing to inflammation and cholesterol? Oh, well, let me look into that. Well, I have none of this on my plant-based raw food diet. So now I start feeling really good. I'm like, oh, whoa, I don't have brain fog anymore. So maybe I'm not stupid. Maybe I don't have ADHD. Maybe I'm just poisoned. And the rabbit trail begins once again. So it's about instilling the self-regulation that we talked about, and now being more conscientious towards your decision-making process. At the same time, you don't want to go into the vegan diet, which is why I said the raw vegan diet, where you're out here eating the Impossible Burger, which is basically industrialized processed seed oils packaged and isn't really food.
Did you have any supplementation with that, whether it's tablet or even like powders, for instance?
I didn't do any supplementation at that time, simply because I try to avoid any sort of supplements that are unnatural.
Yeah.
But yeah.
What's your take on supplements?
They're great, depending on which ones you take.
And in terms of like the sources of where they come from?
Yeah, you need to study the sources of the supplements. Ideally, if you're going to be taking supplements, I would recommend creatine monohydrate as kind of like one of these building blocks. Magnesium, if you have a hard time sleeping, magnesium is super good for you. And I try to keep it light on the supplements. I want to make sure that I'm getting most of my food and nutrients from the food that I eat. But with that, you also have the bullshit and the psyops of them controlling the food. And when you have industrialized kind of food production, you also lose a lot of the nutrient dense kind of properties of the food. So the food doesn't taste the same. There's a reason why you eat inorganic fruit and it tastes like shit and it tastes like gross. It's because it's not really fruit. It's just industrialized, chemicalized, genetically modified food. And I think that most people overeat. Most people eat shit. Most people think that something's wrong with them when in reality they're just poisoned. And once you begin to break from a couple of these habits, you begin to realize, oh, this is a better life. And then you realize that food isn't only used to keep you stupid, but it's also an addiction, right? So why wouldn't big food companies want to create addicting factors or addicting properties to your food so that they keep you hooked? I mean, look at, not going into crazy conspiracies, but look at Kobe Bryant, right? When his helicopter crashed, which is crazy to think about, he was actually in the middle of a lawsuit. He was about to start to testify against the supplement brand that he had partnered with because they had found traces of methamphetamines inside the pre-workout. It's just to hook motherfuckers, right? So
fucking hell.
He died, but I don't know if he died for that. Who knows, right? Maybe the 20-year pilot just experienced that one day, it just made no sense. But they're poisoning your food, not only to fuck you, but also to keep you in the rat race of addiction.
Talk me through how you stay on track with your food when you're traveling, because like even for me, like,
no seed oils, brother.
But how do you, not necessarily how do you know, but where do you eat? How do you eat? Because even for me, like in like a bodybuilding diet, which would still have a lot of fruit and veg, it's very difficult to be able to even like find it, right? Without yakking up a shit ton of like oil or fats or carbs. Very difficult traveling.
It's funny. I brought a suitcase with me full of food.
Man, I'm the exact same.
Yeah, dude, obviously, like,
The exact same thing.
obviously most people can't do that. I get it. But I just went to my local grocery store, figured out organic things that can actually have a 30-day, 60-day shelf life. Brought organic raw cheese. It's in my fridge. I know it sounds crazy and mental, but I feel fucking good.
Yeah.
Better than me walking into one of these places that have genetically modified bullshit seed oil food that is going to make me feel like shit. So I stick to pretty clean diet across the board, even when I'm traveling. But Asia's hard, bro. Asia is a little bit difficult with the food. I think
It's oil, right?
Yeah, I think Europe is really, really good. Most of Europe with getting rid of genetically modified and highly processed foods. And in the US, even though it's fucked up, you can still have pretty decent alternatives.
My opinion on the US is quite strange.
Tell me.
So my partner is from America, and first time I went to America was last year for a podcast. And I'm very split. I think on one side it's impossible to be poor because there's so much opportunity. On the other side, I think it's so hard to be rich because people are oppressing you. On one side, I think it's impossible to be skinny and fit because the food is so bad. On the opposite side, I think it's so difficult to be fat because there's whole food and there's a lot of good food companies there. So it's so wide, and in between you have everybody.
You have choice. You have a lot of choice in the US, but people obviously go to the path of least resistance. So what I've come to realize, you look at the food companies that kind of operate in the US ecosystem, and it's controlled by 4 or 5 big conglomerates. You have Nestle, you have a couple companies that kind of run the entire game. So they give you the freedom or the illusion of freedom of choice that look how many chip options there are. Look how many canned meal options there are. Look how many different recipes that I can actually cook up. And then you look at the ingredients and they're all altered versions of the exact same thing. For example, you go to the United States early in the morning, 5, 6 in the morning, and you have 4 or 5 restaurants: McDonald's, Chick-fil-A, Burger King, and Taco Bell. And in the morning at 4, 5, 6 in the morning, you have Cisco, which is the food company that delivers all the same ingredients to all the businesses the same way. So yeah, they'll add a couple spices, a couple ingredients, but it's an illusion of choice. You don't really have a choice. In order to have choice, you need to make real decisions, right? You need to actually choose what you're going to eat and determine that. But once you take away that masquerade of the logo, the ingredients are the same thing from the same manufacturer.
What do you think about some of the bigger chains like Whole Foods and these brands that are meant to be healthy for you? Like even their
Whole
fruit
Foods is bullshit. So most of Whole Foods is not organic. I just stay to organic, clean, as least refined and as least processed as possible. The less ingredients your food has when it comes to looking at, dude, if you look at the back of a package of chips and it has more than just potatoes and then some healthy oil to deep fry it, and it has all this crazy shit, that's not food. That's not food. So I like to limit how much processed food I actually intake, which is not a lot, and just stick to clean diet, bro. It's so life-changing. It's so life-changing. I think it's one of, if not the hardest things to change, because it's so addicting to get out of that. I remember when I used to be super addicted to refined sugars, and dude, I would tell my family, or I would tell my girl, oh, I'm gonna cut candy, right? And then I would find myself with sugar cravings at 1 a.m, sneaking out of my house, going to the gas station and loading up with chips, candy, sodas, and coming back to the house. Dude, that's not fucking normal behavior. That's not normal. It's weird. That's fucking deranged behavior. That's lunacy. That's addiction. And I felt fucked up every time I did it, but I continued doing it. So if you continue doing something that you know is bad for you, but it's addicting, then you need to understand that there's a process of detox that needs to take place. Just like you would detox and have withdrawals from any sort of actual drug. Sugar is a drug. You're gonna have fucking serious withdrawals. And I think it took me about 2 years to actually get over intense sugar cravings. But I haven't had that candy bullshit ever since.
Did you ever have a deep blood panel test done?
Yes.
And did you have any deficiencies?
No, I'm actually fucking crazy good, bro. Testosterone,
process?
1050, bro.
And did you have it tested previously?
No, previously I was just fucked up, but now in a really good healthy perspective, I'm doing quite well.
That's amazing, man. What's your take on alcohol?
It depends, right? So alcohol is no longer what it used to be. Alcohol, the process of refining and fermenting is different. You look at Fireball. Do you know Fireball? It's like a cinnamon drink that they have in the US. The ingredients in the US are different than the ingredients in Europe. So people are like, this is a cinnamon spicy drink. And then you look at what they use in the United States to make Fireball shots, and it has formaldehyde, which is the coolant that they use for air conditioning. So I was like, oh yeah, no wonder it burns. Yeah, no wonder it burns, because it's fucking chemical compositions. So there are ways to consume alcohol that are a lot better than others. For example, you read in ancient texts how they used to drink wine and things of this nature. It was different. The process of making the wine, the fermentation, the preservatives and the additives that were added, the pesticides that were coming into those bottles. So I think the alcohol that you see on the shelf today is poisonous, but there's probably good options of alcohol consumption out there that have to be created and done extremely well. But I don't drink alcohol. At all? No.
It's all about how it's used though, right? Because so I haven't drank alcohol for 500 days. And I had a video in it recently, and a lot of the feedback comes from people is that, well, you could have it once a month and it's fine. It's like, of course you can. You can have a bottle of whiskey or a glass of whiskey once a month or with your partner or whatever, and it's fantastic. You might enjoy it. But the problem is individuals will abuse that drug or abuse the option to take it.
Yeah, too much of something is always bad. Right? If I give you too much water, you're going to drown and die. Right? So at the end of the day, too much of anything can become bad, and the last thing you want to do is become an addict. Right? You don't want to be a functioning cannabis user. You don't want to be a functioning alcoholic, because all you're doing is just coping with things that you have to solve in your life.
Versus taking the action.
Or versus just allowing yourself to enter a state of sobriety and dealing with them.
I want to ask you about Capital Club. So, there's a lot of, I wouldn't say influencers, but big creators have these private network groups. Why do you think they're growing in popularity at a deeper level? Like, why are people flocking to these groups, do you think?
So let me go back as to why I created Capital Club. I was talking to one of the founders of OpenAI a couple years ago, and he was talking about building AI companies and things of this nature. And I asked him, hey, should I build an AI company? And he said, no, build an AI-proof company. Build a company that can sustain the things that our AI is going to disrupt. So what can AI currently not disrupt? It can't disrupt personal development. It can't disrupt community. It can't disrupt fellowship and unity. It can't disrupt these things. Tangibles, right? And social media did the antithesis of what it was supposed to do. Social media was supposed to connect everybody, but everybody feels more disconnected and isolated than ever before. So now you see the forming of digital tribes, right? People that begin to resonate with certain messages and begin to kind of group and kind of conglomerate in their own little areas of the internet. So as the internet becomes more refined, you're going to start seeing people segment out from big platforms and just use big platforms as a way to siphon people into their own networks. But I support a lot of these guys. I support a lot of these guys building communities. I think that there are a lot of great communities out there. Most of the big dogs that you actually see out there that are creating content, at the end of the day, when it's all said and done, compared to everything else that's out there on the internet, they're good dudes.
Of course, but they're also helping you, right? So whether it's on the financial side like Capital Club, as well as the broader wealth spectrum, even interacting with people, because you and I are kind of different because we like both are partners, whereas for some people, a lot of guys they're building on their own. They're locked in a fucking room, right, for 6-7 years.
And it comes down to intention, It comes down to intention. If all you're there to do is extract from your community, then your community will eventually notice. So it's I don't give a fuck. There's people out here extracting from the community. Dude, the marketplace will take care of them. I don't need to talk about them. I don't need to criticize them. The market will do what the market needs to do. It's people are like, oh, this guy's out here doing this and that. It's like, bro, go take care of your mom. Your mom's not retired. Why are you commenting on another person, what another person's doing? The internet's smart enough to eventually pull out weeds and siphon out scammers. Like, it happens. It's happening since the dawn of man. So the scammers get cleaned out, especially on the internet. But these people that are building real sustainable communities, dude, I support them, because what's the opposite of it? The opposite is a lot of these kids growing up having no role models, having no figures, having no individuals that they can look up to, and having no community. So if I can be a part of that change in some way, shape, or form, so be it.
Are you familiar with Balaji, the CTO of Coinbase?
Yes.
Yeah.
I actually DM'd him a couple times we've DM'd a couple times on Twitter.
It's cool, dude. He has a famous saying that's everyone's boss is the CEO, the CEO's boss is the market. I love that.
It's true.
Over a long enough time period, right?
Yes.
When you expand time, everything comes out, whether it's the good, the bad, or the ugly.
And it's also understanding that with all these digital tribes that are being formed, you know, Balaji has this like network effect that he talks about, you know, and how you're going to have these network states that are going to be rising from the internet and creating these kind of individualized kind of societies. I can either be in a situation where I start a civil war, right, out of jealousy or out of comparison as to what somebody else is doing, or how I think somebody else should run a community, or how somebody else should run a group of individuals. Or I can just be diplomatic and actually understand that there's different ways to the top of the mountain. And it's better for these individuals to be associating with prosperity, self-development, education, than being scrolling on TikTok, looking at hoes, on OnlyFans, on Pornhub, scrolling on Instagram, scrolling on Snapchat. It's like, it's just disease. So anybody that's trying to provide any sort of solution, they have my support, bro.
100%. What's been some of the biggest success stories of Capital Club?
Dude, everybody that is part of my deep Capital Club network, which you have to become a millionaire.
And how does that work? Do you just submit your bank details?
Yeah, you have to submit either verified crypto wallets or verified bank account. And it's quite expensive for that kind of elite tier. I would say the most impactful thing is it extends beyond money. It's seeing people become a better version of themselves because they're inspired by what other people show them. So for example, you know, I have people inside Capital Club that have sold companies for 50, 100, $200 million, but they come and, you know, their mental space isn't good, or they're overweight, and they get to be inspired by somebody that maybe doesn't have a lot of money, but they have their physique in check. So I would say that the success of Capital Club doesn't come from an individual person being like, oh, I made this guy a millionaire. No. I created an ecosystem that allowed this person to find relationships, be vulnerable, be who they are, and pursue individuals that they can learn from, because they realize that there's so many areas of life that still need to be improved. So yeah, dude, I think Capital Club is great simply because it provides an alternative ecosystem to traditional media, because we have our academy, we have fucking incredible content, and it provides a network effect of authenticity, truth, and transparency, and that all you have to do is focus on becoming the best version of yourself. And if you can focus on becoming the best version of yourself, you're more than welcome.